Hello folks, Nile Creek Fly Shop here. Well, it's a late fall day and it's a great day to tie flies. So I'm going to tie a fly that's super efficient, catches a lot of fish, both salmon, trout and steelhead, and we're going to tie it stinger style. We're doing a bunny leech. I'm using a bright colored one so we can see it on this little video. And to start off, I'm going to be using a cheap hook. It's actually a forged salmon hook. That's not a very high quality one, but we just need the shank. So I'm putting on the thread. I'm using nano silk, which I really like because it's super strong. And I really want to clamp this material down with my thread. Not only that, we're going to be putting a loop on this, so I want a real good strong base for this. Now I'm going to be using, for my loop material, not wire. I don't like wire, it acts too much like a rudder. I'm using Fireline. Fireline is a Berkeley product, really nice, crystal clear. It's crystal, 20-pound, super thin, as a lot of these modern braids are. Now I'm going to have the loop about 1.5 inches back of where I started it. So I'm going to start my thread here in the front, and we're going to be using a dumbbell eye on the front of this. There we are. I've never had one of these pull in the last number of years. One time, years and years ago, I had one pull apart on the bottom. I had hooked a rock and the fly pulled apart. So since then I've been really making sure my loop is tied in really well. And I've hooked, 30-35 pound Chinook and 20-pound steelhead and many other big fish with a stinger. And this is a stinger style fly. So we're using rabbit. Rabbit is a essential material for fly tyers. Now I'm going to, you see the hide? You can see the hide. I'm going to measure the hide so it's just past the end of the loop. And I'm going to start spreading the hair so that I can tie in my rabbit right back here. You spread the hair. You want to spread the hair, and you get right down, get used to getting rabbit hair in your mouth. You're going to get right down to the hide. Now when I lay this on this side of the shank for me. And so when I start wrapping, it's going to pull the hide squarely right onto the top, or you can adjust it like that. And you can really clamp this material in. Now, there we are. That's why I like the nano silk so much. It's just so cool. In the water, you never ever see where that was tied in. Now, we're going to pull that back. I'm going to lock it in the front of this as well. Now I'm going to start with some chenille. We're using a fairly large crystal chenille on the body. And we're going to be wrapping it, palmering in some schlappen. So I'm going to lay in my schlappen. I did not strip one side of the schlappen. You can, but I didn't. I like a lot of material on the whisker, the chin of this fly. Now I'll tie in my, by the way, I'm using the Catrelli T-Rex spice, which of course I really like as well. Bring my thread back to there, and I'm going to tie in my chenille. You don't have to be too fussy with this, because this is a very burly and bushy fly. There, come to the front. This is where the bead is going to be, the dumbbell eye. Now I'm going to start palmering. There we are. Don't have to worry too much about bumps and being perfectly wrapped. You just want it wrapped well. The body should be a good 1.5 inches or so, inch and a quarter. on this one here, I'll lock it in really good, and I am going to use a lot of super glue periodically on this fly. And I'm using Gulf's Minuteman super glue. Again, very easy to use, good quality super glue. Yeah, there's cheap super glue and there's good super glue. Now I'm going to palmer this anyway, I'm not too worried about this. There. And of course you're going to bring your material back, bring your fibers back. There we are. Nice. Well wrapped. Very nice. Very nice. Now one over the front here. Want to lock this in. Beautiful, beautiful, just beautiful. To avoid cutting your thread, I just push the blade through the vein. That way I'm not cutting any fibers. I'm going to cut the material back and really lock her in. And here I'm going to use super glue. So you can see how nicely that schlappen looks on here. And it does. It looks really, really nice. There. Now I'm going to wet my fingers. Force those fibers down somewhat. And I'm going to bring over my rabbit over the top. Some people will use scissors to force that down. I don't bother. I just like it like that. That's fine. And I'm going to, you actually can strip the hair off the hide of that rabbit. Or you can also cut these slapping fibers and put super glue there and bring it down and do all that stuff. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to come right over the, because I'm using nano silk, it really clamps that material down. Remember, if I pull that way, I'm going to try to force that hide. So again, just lock her in really, really snug. Lock her in really, really well. Nice thing about rabbit is it's a big fly. Now at this point, I'm going to put in a little bit of flash. And I'm going to use shrimp pink. I am going to use shrimp pink crystal flash. All materials are getting expensive. All materials. So, I'm going to lock it in on one side. Some people, myself included, sometimes I'll just put it right on top. But I want this on the sides. And we can cut it to length as we need it after. The beauty of a rotating vise. I do want to lay that a little more on the side. There we are. Yeah, there we are. Much better. So now you can see the shape of this thing. It's pretty sexy looking fly. And definitely steelhead colors. And salmon. I've hooked some major salmon on this type of a fly. Especially chum. Chum just love this stuff. Now we're going to put on the dumbbell eye. Yes, the dumbbell eye is next. And we're going to lay it in right just past the rabbit hide. See the little gap? That gap's there for a reason. I'm going to start I'm using a Palmer chenille. And I'm going to start it behind the dumbbell eye and bring it over. I like the palmer chenille because the chenille is just on the one side. So you can actually palmer, it's like a strip feather. All the hair is on one side. There we are. And yes, you can force the material if you need to. Love this palmer chenille, nice stuff. This is the medium size palmer chenille. You can get it even large, but I'm just going to the medium. And a couple of wraps over here. And again, in the water, this thing's going to look pretty snaky. There we are. Without crowding the eye. Again, just push my blade through. Cup it. And so essentially, folks, the fly tying part of this is over. Except, of course, I want to install the hook. And the hook I'm going to use is an Ahrex stinger hook. Light wire. I don't want anything really too heavy. I don't want it to pull down the rabbit hide in the water. I want it to be swimming as natural as possible. So I'm going to be using a very light wired, super strong Ahrex stinger. And the number on it is, it's an NS 182. It's a trailer hook. That's what it is. There, so my head's finished. Now, I need a needle. I'm using a long needle simply because it's what I have available. You don't need to use a long needle necessarily, but I do. And I always will take my loop. There's my loop. You can see my loop. And I'm going to put the needle through the bottom side about, maybe an inch down from where it's locked in. There. And I'm going to put my loop inside the eye of the needle and pull it through the hide. There it is. My stinger, and I like the fire line because it can be really, really thin down. So it goes through the eye of the hook like that. Now I'm going to open up the loop, bring my hook through it, and I'm going to bring that loop right down and over the eye so that it locks in onto the round part of the eye, not onto the part that has the sharp edge, because that will compromise, potentially it could compromise your hook set and cut the line. Now you can see how stiff that fire wire is, the fire line. So it's not like wire, it is supple, it'll move nicely in the water, but stiff enough so that it maintains some kind of a body. And there you go, folks, look at that. Now that is pretty sexy for a steelhead intruder type bunny leech fly. I hope you like that, folks. It's a really nice technique to use when you're tying this type of a fly, and they are very, very fishy. You can tie them in all lengths and sizes, and yeah, you can tie them up to 6 inches if you want, or down to 1.5 inches. There you go, folks. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.